Morning folks, it's early August and everything has grown so much. You see behind me the meadow is pretty tall now, and that will be cut for silage very soon. I'd imagine sometime in the next couple of weeks. One of the things I did earlier in the year was to put stock fencing all round the meadow. See that over my shoulder there? In fact, I'll turn around and show you. Yeah, the entire meadow is fenced now. There was a fence around the outside when we came, but with plans to train Ray properly on the sheep, we needed to get the meadow fence so that they were contained. Otherwise, they had so many escape routes around the farm that it was unfair and impossible to train him. So I put the fence up with plenty of advice from my pal Stephen down the glen, who has fenced many miles of Argyle, and it turned out pretty good. I did learn some stuff while I was doing it, for sure, not just about how to put a stock fence up, but also how to not kill yourself. I did put all the posts in with a post basher and got a little carried away at one point and lifted it too high. As it came back down, just caught the back edge of the post, front edge came down, cracked me straight on the head, which meant I had to lay on the meadow in the fetal position for a little while and moan very gently, which was it wasn't fun. But there you go, lessons learned. I have heard of people who are knocking their teeth out and knocking themselves out, in fact, doing exactly the same thing. So lesson learned, hopefully. Anyway, obviously we needed to get in and out of the meadow, so one of the things I've done is I've made some gates. This is our, there's the bridge onto the farm and the main gate there. So I left an entrance here. There's another one right over the far side, but also obviously I needed to leave enough room for the machines to get onto the meadow when they come to cut the silage. The tractor with the mower and then the baler and trailer that they use to take everything away. So to make a pretty substantial opening, which I'll show you up here. I made the posts out of the old telegraph pole, sorry, not telegraph pole, electric pole, which was here. That was replaced earlier in the year, and the electric company left the telegraph pole, so I was able to cut that up and use that for the posts. And they are pretty mighty posts, as you can see there. And then I made these couple of gates. They're 10 foot each. I just got a bit of wire on at the moment to hold them together. We're actually going to be picking up the pullover latch today, I think, from Oban. So that'll be them finished. There's Ray's training pen. Can't do much with Ray on the meadow at the moment because it's so long you can't even see the sheep, so that'll be good to get it cut, and then I can get on with him again. So what I thought I'd show you in this video is how I've made the gates, because I've got one more to make, which is at the top end of the meadow. So I figured I needed the one down the bottom, because I quite often go in and out down by the main gate on the quad bike onto the meadow there. So then I've got the big ones halfway down, and then we've got one more. I'll go this way. Here, so the stock fence comes all the way up there, up to the pen, and then it runs in a straight line along there. And this is just a temporary thing that I put up Keeps Ray out and the sheep in. So this is where I'm going to make the next gate. It's going to be about, what is it going to be, about 6 foot, something like that. So I shall probably hang it on this post here and swing it and shut it on that post. So that's what we've got to measure up. So I'll show you how I make the gates. I'm not saying it's the only way or the best way, but it's the way I've done it with the machinery and the tools that I've got. And might be useful to somebody. So this is a drawing I did for the first gate, and everything's, it's only the length dimension that changes. So these are all 3x1s. This is the closing side, that's 3x3, and this is the hinge side, which is 4x3. It's a bit beefier to take the hinge. And then I've got these braces, which are 3x1, and the other one on the other side goes the opposite way. And then there's one piece up the top which I make out of 3x2 and then cut a bevel on the top edge so that the rain runs off. So this is originally for one that was 2360 wide. The gate I've got to make now is 2050. But all these heights stay the same. I've got an equal gap here, so we're up 75mm or 3 inches. Then we've got the 3x1, then we've got a 4-inch gap. 3 inch, 4 inch, 3 inch, and then at the top there I increase that gap to 6 inches between these two. And then these numbers up the side are just the positions for the mortise cutouts. So I just put a line at all those dimensions and mark out the mortises. So that'll all become clear. I've got the 4x3 and the 3x3. I haven't got any 3x1, so I've got to cut that. So obviously if you're buying it, that's pretty straightforward, but I've got to cut it down from probably cut it out of some 6x2 that I've got. So I'll use my machine to do that. And once I've got the wood, I'll get it all marked out. So I'm going to mark out the measurements that I've already worked out, so that you have 3 inches at the bottom, then your 3-inch rail, 4-inch gap, 3-inch rail, 4-inch gap, 3-inch rail, and then the last 2 rails end up with a, what's that one, 250. The last one ends up with a 6-inch gap between. Again, it looks more balanced if you've got bigger gaps at the top. 325. 425, 650, 725, 875, 950. First, if you look at the stock fencing, the gaps at the bottom are always smaller than those at the top. So this kind of matches in with that really. And I'm just going to mark across both bits of wood. And then turn over and transfer the marks, the edges, which is where the mortise is going to be cut. This one is now we're going to cut these mortises all the way through the post. So. And we'll cut the mortise in from both sides, so we've got to mark it on both edges, both sides of the upright. The last couple of, well, all the gates I've made so far, I've done all the mortices by hand. Simply because I didn't have anything else to do them with. I've got a router that I do things like that with, but I lent it to somebody and didn't have it, but I've just got it back. So I'm going to do some of each, just so you can see a different way of doing it. And on that 4x3, I noticed there's quite a lot of mortices going through where there's knots, so I'll probably do those ones with the router, and the ones that I can I'll do by hand, because I know not everybody's got lots of gear, and all this stuff can be done by hand. Of course it can. All you need really is a drill and a hammer and a chisel. Something to sharpen your chisel on, because you don't want to be doing this with a blunt chisel. So that's just a drag. So I've now got my lines. So you can see that, but I'll move you around so you can. These are the lines. So that's going to be a mortise there, 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 and there. Everything else is gaps. So the rails they come out about 22mm. And we want this to sit in the middle. So you can measure all this. I haven't got a marking gauge at the moment. There's something else you can do it with. If we just measure that in from both sides and even it up. 24mm each side. Do the same that end. Draw along the outside edges of that board. So we now have our mortices marked out. Well, on that one bit, I've got to do that 3 more times on the other side of this one, both sides of that one. So that gives you a line to work to the inside edge of that line when we drill it and chisel it, and it should give us a nice tight mortise. On the ones I do with the router, I'll set a fence up, so that will end up in the centre as well. Again, just measure it there, and on the other side. Move it over here so you can get a different view of what I'm doing. So this is our 3x1 rail. Make sure that's in the middle. Yep. Measure both sides. 24mm. Sides, and then draw a line on the outside of the rail and between your 2 marks that you put on for the mortise. And there you go. That's that one done. This one. 24mm again. 24. 24. Years ago I worked with a joiner in a workshop. I learned a lot from him. And he often used to say, if you can use something like a piece of wood to mark things out rather than a tape measure, you can't get it wrong. You can always mismeasure, but if your bit of wood's the size it's got to be and you mark on it, then you can't get your measurement wrong. So even if I'm slightly out of centre, which I shouldn't be, at least my mortise will be the right size because I've marked it directly off the bit of wood that's got to go into the mortise. So that's that marked out. So this is how I would do the mortises by hand. I mean, you can, if you haven't even got a drill, you can use a brace and bit if you've got one of those. So this drill is just slightly, very slightly smaller than the mortise. Drill. Be pretty careful about how you line it up. Just go down halfway or thereabouts. This is spruce, this wood, and it's pretty fibrous. So gets caught up in the drill quite a lot. So on that side, do the same from the other side, and they should meet up. Skittering about for some reason. There we go, met up with the other side. There we go. I guess this is gonna chuck the camera about a little bit, so just clean the edges up, just stick to the inside of the pencil line. Cut down the edges. So I've just got an off cut of one of the rails because the rails are over length, so I can cut that off. Just use that to check the mortise. I want it pretty tight. It's going to be hammered in anyway, so check that side and then check the other side. Yeah, that will go in with a tap. Yeah. So, 1 down, 9 to go. So this is the other way of cutting the mortises with a router. So I've got my hole marked out. So what I've done is I've set the fence up on the router, and you always want to have the fence on the far side from the line you want to cut to. So in other words, don't have the fence here and cut that side, this side of the mortise. Cut the far side of the mortise. That way, if at any point your fence moves away from the timber, you're cutting into stuff that's got to be cut away anyway on this side. If you were to be cutting this edge, the back edge, and it moved away, you'd be cutting into timber you want to keep. So always cut the far side of your mortise away from the fence. And the other thing to do is when you're travelling cutting timber, always cut from the right to the left, because the blade is spinning this way, and so if you come from right to left, the blade is pulling itself, like pulling the fence onto the wood, whereas if you went the other way, it'll keep trying to push itself away from the wood. So I hope that makes sense. It's going to be a bit loud. Camera will probably do funny things, but so I'm going to plunge in with this router. I'll just keep plunging, and then once I've plunged all the way along to the full depth, then I'll take a full cut just to trim it up. So there, I've plunged down, and then I'll just empty that out, and then just move half a hole across every time and cut down. That way it leaves you plenty of room for the swarf to get away, rather than trying to cut the whole width of the cutter each time. Just cut half a hole each time, and then once you've gone all the way, put it full depth, run along, and you get a nice clean edge. So now I'm just gonna, what I'll do is, just because the camera's there, I'll turn this round. Normally I'd just stand the other side and do the cut the other side, but so I'm just gonna drop it in on there. There we go. Let's empty that out. And you've got to clean the corners up. Once that's done, oops, whoops, so turn it over and do the same from the other side. That should just meet in the middle. Go full depth and cut all the way along. Spin it round, come from the other side. Again, clean the corners up. Hopefully, there we go. Pretty decent fit. Check it from the other side. Oops. Quite cleared that corner well enough. There we go. Hopefully that's all that's holding that off. There we go. That's a pretty nice tight joint. So just got two more to do and we start putting it together. So that's the mortices all done. 5 in each. See the routed ones are a little bit neater than the hand ones because it's so sinewy, this wood, it's hard to get a clean edge with a chisel, but can be done either way. All the other gates I made here were done by hand because I didn't have the router, so it can be done. So now it's just a case of banging all the rails into the mortices and putting the gate together. Okay, the mortise is pretty tight, but so it's a lot of crashing and bashing to get them in, but I'd rather they were a bit tight than a bit loose. So now I left these rails about 2100, the gate's 2050, so we've got a little bit hanging over each end, so gives a little bit of room to play. And I've knocked them on until they are exactly 2050 there and there. Yep. But that doesn't mean to say they may be parallel, but they might not be square. So easy check for that is you put the tape right in the corner over there, top edge, and measure to that point there, and that's 2075. And you do the same thing in the opposite corner. And that's 2065, which means it's slightly longer across there than it is across there. So to make that right, we've got to squash that way. So get that. Just give it a little shove like that. So effectively we've squashed that dimension. So if it was 2065 and 2075, we want it to be 2070. That one's 2070 now. A little push on the long side, on the long dimension. Let's put it right. So that's now 2070. So that means it's parallel and square. So now I'll just nail that up both sides, and that'll hold it all in place while we put the braces on and cut the excess off of the rails at each end, and end up with a nice tidy mortise hopefully. Now I nail this with a nail gun. You can screw it or nail it by hand, it doesn't matter. Just to make it quicker, I'm going to do it with a nail gun. But it's worth, before you nail it or screw it or whatever you do, it's worth just having to think about what side is going to be facing you. And this is going to go on the meadow. It doesn't really matter, but if I can keep all the nails on the inside of the meadow rather than the outside, that'd be good. I did make that mistake with the pair of gates. One of them, all the nails are on the inside, and the other one all on the outside. So that has reminded me to check that before I nail this one. So this, as it stands, it's going to hang. So I don't want to nail it this side. I want to nail it on the other side. So they're all on the inside of the meadow. So I just turn it over before I nail it. There we go. So I'm going to cut the angled braces now. So we just need to get an angle for that. So they want to be, obviously meet halfway along here. So that measurement is 1870. So it's 935 to the centre. .935. Sometimes it's obvious, but sometimes obvious things aren't what you think of. But if you want to find the centre of somewhere, you measure the whole thing. Let's say it's 1870 like this, well, that's 935. But if you weren't exactly sure, then measure 935 from one end, then measure 935 from the other end. And if you're smack in the middle, then it'll be one mark. But if there's two marks, go in the middle of the two marks. Simple as that. So I'm going to mark the centre line there, and then just get a length of timber, and I want this timber to run from that centre to that point there. So I'll just draw a line to join those 2 points on this top one, and now I can measure that angle. Angle is 50 degrees. So that angle is 40. Angle from there to there is 40. So I need to cut 40 degrees on either end of that. That one's long enough, yeah. So there's me 40 degrees on the end. Put that exactly where I want it there. It should meet the centre up there, which it does. Now I can just mark a pencil line there and cut 40 degrees again. Along that line there, that way. 40 degrees on both ends. That should sit in there nicely. And up to a point there. That's it. Lovely. Now I'll just repeat that the other way. Cut the angle at one end, mark it off the other end for my length, cut the angle again, put it on. And then we do the same on the other side, but up the other way. So you get this nice pattern, and it braces it in two different directions. Just out of curiosity, you might be wondering why I'm doing this on the floor and in a so-called workshop. I haven't got a bench. Well, the reason for that is, in here, what you see here is actually what will be our living room. This is part of the byre, stone byre or barn that we are going to convert into our living space, and it's in a bit of a state at the moment, but we're waiting on a building warrant so that we can, let me just clear that screen a bit, so that we can start work on it. So there's no point in me setting anything up permanent, so I've just got a few odd benches, and I've got my saw bench there and a multi-purpose machine over there, and radial arm saw over there, but there's so much stuff which isn't really put away. But imagine a wood burner there, a sofa, the bathroom's going to be over here, there's going to be a staircase here. Oh, it's all happening, but just waiting on a building warrant, and then we can get started. That should make some interesting videos, hopefully. But meanwhile, it means that I'm doing things in the workshop that I'd rather be doing on a bench or whatever. But there you go. We haven't all got all the facilities we need or we want, so you just have to do it the best you can. And that's what I'm doing here with this. So I've got two more braces to cut that will run this way and that way, and then I've got to make the cap for the top. Cut the ends of the rails off flush there, and then we're ready for the next stage, which is finishing it. You see that there's a swallow. Oh, he missed him. Swallows have been nesting in here, and they're all fledgling away at the moment, and they keep flying in for a little visit and then heading off again. So I'll get the last couple of braces cut and into place, and then it'll be time for finishing, like I say.
My Sal is like your maiden swing her hairs like her mother's with hands and quick work of a chart.
There's the gate with the braces on now. I've just got to make the cap for the top, which will have a bevel both ways. Just cut that out a bit of 3x2, and then there's a couple of little blocks that have to go on the hinge side just to take the hinge. But other than that, we're nearly there. So you can put the bevel on this timber with a 3x2 with a hand planer or a power planer, but in my instance, I've put the blade over on the saw at about 20 degrees, and I'm gonna run it through there to get that angle. you go. So that just needs to be cut to length. Actually, looking at the bottom of that, I might have to run that across the planer. It's a bit up and down. I'll put a flat edge on the bottom of that, I think, and then that can be fixed on. This is the top hinge, which is going to go on there. So you just have to cut a piece of timber in there on both sides just to give it something to bolt through. Just take an off-cut of one of the rails through to there. There are two pieces. That one goes this side. On the other side, you've got this rail coming up, so you've got the angle that meets that. So one goes either side. Just pin them through. Short nails in there. So now when the bracket goes on, got something to bolt through now.